Old Mutual will not be taking further court action against embattled CEO Peter Moyo. The company will wait for a court decision next week on whether it acted in contempt of court. In the meantime, it's requested Moyo to work from home but not at the office. We've got Old Mutual board chair Trevor Manuel told ENCA's Heidi Jokos that he was confident the company had acted lawfully.
What will happen if you guys are found in contempt of court next week?
Well, I think that the advice we have is that there can't be a general finding of contempt. There has to be a specific finding, and we will then be called before the court. But I think we stand on very confident ground about this matter, especially because we have been granted leave to appeal.
Well, the man of the moment joins me in studio this afternoon, Peter Moyo, alongside his lawyer, Eric Mabuza, really to expound further on this conversation. Thanks a lot, gentlemen, for joining us this afternoon.
Thanks, Faith.
Peter, I must ask you, what have you done? I mean, it appears as though you've won because they've decided not to pursue further legal action against you. However, on the other side of it, I'm just asking myself, especially hearing now the board chair, Trevor Manuel, say that he thinks that he did not act out of contempt of court or the institute itself. So what happened? What have you done?
Well, I'll really love to know what I've done because the stories that keep on coming out of Old Mutual are in a sense contradictory. Firstly, I was actually told that the board had lost faith and confidence in me as a result of the so-called conflict of interest. We challenged that. We went to court. When we went to court, Old Mutual said, no, that's actually not the reason. We actually terminated your contract on a so-called no-fault termination. Today, they had a press conference, and they went on and on about this conflict of interest. So I really want to know what exactly it is.
So it was not necessarily linked to this issue around the fact that you own about 25% of the company which you co-founded with them, which is NMT, where Old Mutual owns about 20% of. So it's no longer that on the table.
Well, that's not the issue at court. The issue at court is around my contract of employment, because we are actually contending that that's actually the reason, because that's actually what they gave us as the reasons. But in court, they're actually saying it's a no-fault termination. But I really want to talk briefly about that. Old Mutual hired me knowing fully well that I worked for NMT, that I was a director of NMT, that I was a shareholder of NMT. My contract of employment is very clear. I'm actually allowed to receive dividends from NMT. It is also true, by the way, that when we declared the ordinary dividends, we also declared a preference dividend. So this notion that when we did one thing, because earlier on Trevor went on and actually said to declare this and forget about Old Mutual, if they bothered, and I've pointed it to them, on the same day that we declared those dividends, we also declared dividends, preference dividends. And there was actually an administrative issue which the NMT executives and Old Mutual executives were dealing with, which in terms of my contract, I'm not supposed to be involved in. There was also the issue that, and they keep on repeating it, that the preference capital of NMT had actually not been paid. It was after the redemption date. It is true it was after the redemption date, but there's nothing in that contract that actually says you have to pay that before you pay an ordinary dividend. It is actually known that you cannot prefer any credit above other creditors. In fact, because it's capital, it ranks behind other creditors. All the directors of NMT were supposed to ensure that the company was solvent and liquid, which they actually did. And in fact, to prove that it is liquid, they've since even paid that. So I really wish I understood
what's going on. I'm going to get into that because I want to ask you also about the board chairperson. I want to bring Eric into this conversation now. Eric, the reasons behind, was it no fault? Right, the no-fault part behind him being fired, and obviously this has gone in. I mean, even on the 22nd of August, I believe that there was an open letter that was issued to shareholders saying that it had given further notice of the termination of the employment contract in itself. Do you think that there's a secret agenda to oust Moyo, and what is that agenda?
Faith, thank you for inviting me to the studio. First thing, we must condemn with the strongest terms the statement of the Old Mutual Board as represented by Mr. Manuel this morning, where he completely insulted the judge that Old Mutual cannot, his decisions cannot be overturned by a single judge, just by a single individual, just because he's wearing a robe. That is unprecedented. It's unheard of for a board of a listed company to talk in that manner to a presiding judge in a matter that is before court. As you know, important decisions by a president do get overturned by a single judge just because he wears that robe. That is an utter disrespect for our judiciary. We are looking at this and we'll advise you of the steps that we will take to bring this to the attention of the judge and the court. It's completely unacceptable that kind of behavior, particularly that Mr. Manuel stood there and said he was representing the Old Mutual Board. It's also time that Old Mutual Board say something about this kind of statement, whether such a statement is authorized by the board.
So you're thinking that the chairperson of the board is what, rogue?
Well, Faith, maybe before Eric comes in here, as the CEO of Old Mutual, if somebody had actually done that, if one of the employees, this will actually require a proper disciplinary hearing. Because, I mean, you can't, the company of the stature of Old Mutual, make those statements about a judge. I mean, we should actually, Old Mutual committed itself to behave according to its values, ethics. I mean, the first thing, they were talking about good corporate governance. And then later on, you actually say, this board, which is appointed by shareholders in terms of the Companies Act, cannot be overruled by a man by an individual putting on a robe. What is that?
Okay, then back to my question then, Peter. Do you think that there's a secret or there's an agenda by the chairperson of Old Mutual, the chairperson of the board of Old Mutual, to oust you? That is Trevor Manuel. And if so, what is that agenda? Why are we going through this hoo-ha? What does he want?
I don't know. Firstly, unfortunately, I can't talk about some of the things that we have not ventilated in court. In fact, we did say in our papers that we actually believe that this is a smoke screen for other things. We did.
What other things?
Well, I cannot as yet talk about them.
But you do know that there are stuff that is going on behind closed doors.
We also talked about some of the things that actually show that. We also talked about the issue of people not wanting to silence individuals that talk about some of the things. We talked about the triple conflict. We talked about the chairman's fees. In fact, in our papers, we said when we start talking about delinquency, we are also going to talk about other issues of pettiness. There are a whole lot of things that we are going to talk about in the papers when we talk about delinquency.
And so now what happens? I mean, I believe that you're allowed to work from home, but you're not necessarily allowed to come to the office. Are you going to now come to the office and force your way in? What's going to happen now? Are you going to agree and work from home?
Faith, many years back, I actually used to have a view that I was going to work from home. And when I was just about to prepare myself to do that, from NMT, Old Mutual asked me to become CEO. They took me from thinking of working from home to go and work in an office. So they can't tell me that I should go and work from home. I'll only work from home when I'm doing my own personal stuff.
But Faith, that raises another issue. If they say that he can work from home, on the other hand, they say he's not an employee of Old Mutual. It's absurd, that contradiction. I'm sure you've seen the chairperson in the press conference was baffled by the stance taken by their lawyers which say that Mr. Moyo can work from home. But we reject that. We don't accept that they can tell Mr. Moyo to work from home. Mr. Moyo was reinstated by the court. He has every right to go and work at the office.
You know what? I would like to expand further. Unfortunately, I've got people who are in my ear telling me we need to literally wrap this conversation up. But at the bottom of it, at the end of it, it's the fact that you're saying that due diligence was done and NMT was actually aware. We were aware of the fact that actually you were at NMT, and so therefore that is a non-issue at all. And the contract, the termination of the contract is what is at hand here. That's why I asked the question around, do you believe there's an agenda specifically by the board chairperson?
In fact, I'll keep on repeating this. There was absolutely no wrongdoing.
Yeah.
All Mutual know about it.
Yeah.
knew about my involvement at NMT. Actually, the Old Mutual people that deal with this knew that NMT, on the day that they paid the ordinary dividend, they also spoke to them about paying the preference dividend.
Peter,
So
I do wish you all the best, and I do want to see exactly what's going to be happening from here on. Unfortunately, we have run out of time for this conversation,
Thank
but
you.
I look forward to having you back in my studio, and let's see what happens and how this matter is resolved there. Well, still on